I work in the DG Environment as responsible officer for wilderness issues. I'm going to give you a presentation on the links between wilderness and European biodiversity policy. I start by going shortly through the history of wilderness on the European agenda during the past years. One could say that wilderness appeared on this agenda for the first time in February 2009 in the form of European Parliament resolution on wilderness in Europe. The resolution was adopted almost unanimously, and it called on the European Commission and the Member States take action on several issues. Already in May 2009, a presidency conference on wilderness and large natural areas in Europe was arranged in Prague, and another presidency conference took place in Brussels in the end of last year. This time the topic was restoration of wilderness. From the parliamentary resolution 2009 to this date, the debate on wilderness in Europe has continued. The argumentation has developed and some concrete steps have been taken. The importance of wilderness for the protection of biodiversity cannot be disputed. Scientific research, for example on peatlands and forests, clearly shows the importance of natural dynamics, processes and structures for many species. Understanding these links also helps us understand why species of the most abundant habitats sometimes form the largest groups among the red-listed species. The importance of the design of the protected areas is also a well-known fact. We know that large and well-connected is better than small and isolated when it comes to nature protection. Large scale allows for processes that could not function in small areas, and connectivity allows for species to migrate and ensures recolonization in case of local extinctions. In this regard, the Habitats Directive sets out a good overall target, namely of maintaining or reaching favorable conservation status. For habitats, the favorable conservation status is defined in a way that includes their specific structures and functions, as well as their typical species. Both functions and connectivity are addressed in EU environment policy. Natura 2000 network includes the most valuable areas of European nature and serves as a tool for appropriate management of sites, including wilderness areas, and the wider EU environment policy tackles issues related to connectivity. According to preliminary studies, about 99% of IUCN protected area categories that correspond to wilderness are found within Natura 2000 sites. When the overlap of wilderness and Natura 2000 is explored with GIS tools using some robust spatial factors and forgetting the protection status of the areas, it is found out that only 1% of the top 1% of Europe's wilderness is found within Natura 2000 network. If we then take the top 10% of Europe's wilderness, 14% is found within Natura 2000. However, there seems to be a better correlation with some Annex II species which are often connected to wilderness, such as bear, lynx, wolverine, and wolf. However, this seems to be an issue for further studies, but this information helps us putting wilderness in a European context. Here you can see a selection of the most relevant items of European biodiversity agenda in terms of wilderness. I will go through them now very shortly, and then I will present them to you in more detail. So first, biodiversity strategy will set the overall frame for EU action until 2020. Guidelines on management of wilderness and wild areas within Natura 2000 network is an important tool in order to enhance the management of wilderness in Natura 2000 sites. New biogeographic seminar serves mostly for the same purpose, namely management, but has a wider scope, reaching outside Natura 2000 network. Wilderness register is important in order to ensure that the existing areas are known and their values can be communicated. A green infrastructure policy will help in keeping the natural jewels of Europe, such as Natura 2000 sites, connected and contribute to the protection of ecosystems more widely. Last but not least, Emerald Network is the counterpart of Natura 2000 network outside EU. It is analogical to Natura 2000 and shall supposedly show the same or even more relevance to the protection of wilderness and wild areas as Natura 2000 does. And now the first line of the list. Long-term vision until 2050 and mid-term headline target until 2020 were adopted by the Member States in the end of March last year. Biodiversity strategy is the main tool for achieving the 2020 target and on the way towards 2050. It is also EU's answer to international commitments under, for example, the Convention on Biological Diversity. It will focus on halting the biodiversity loss. It will pursue more ecosystem restoration, enhance connectivity, and focus on ecosystem services, all of which are aspects which are relevant for the protection of wilderness as well. The Commission communication on the strategy is foreseen on 4th May and the Council conclusions following that in June. Natura 2000 network is the cornerstone of EU biodiversity policy and will remain to be so. As Natura 2000 network also hosts almost all protected wilderness areas in EU, as I told you earlier, it is extremely important how these areas are managed. The Commission has launched a study aiming at drafting management guidelines for wilderness and wild areas in Natura 2000 network. The work will include mapping of wilderness in Natura 2000 network, and it will study the role of structures and functions in these areas, and it will study how they contribute to the attainment of favorable conservation status. The study will look at conservation objectives in these areas and collect information about management measures, and the study will also handle restoration of these areas. The overall objective of this project is to share best practice and increase our understanding about the wilderness and wild areas, especially in the frame of EU nature legislation, which, no need to mention probably, by definition is wilderness friendly. In order to protect wilderness and qualities related to it, it is important to know where to find it. Therefore, the Commission is planning to launch another study to create a registry on wilderness. The approach would be twofold. On the one hand, existing protected wilderness areas would be collected to one registry, and on the other hand, GIS mapping would be applied to spot the most prominent wilderness areas on European level. This would also allow future monitoring of changes and potential further analysis. The outcome of such GIS mapping could be something like this. But the aim of our project is to explore what would be the ideal data set for this kind of mapping, and we would produce another kind of GIS map. There's actually the blue spots on the map represent the top 10% of wilderness areas in Europe. And there's one blue area around there. I don't know if you can actually see it, but on this screen it can be seen. I don't know which area it is, and I tried to compare it with maps, and it didn't perfectly match with Soma, but probably it might have been Soma. One other increasingly important part of EU biodiversity policy is green infrastructure, which has direct link with wilderness agenda as it aims at strengthening functionality of ecosystems and increasing spatial and functional connectivity between existing natural areas and improving landscape permeability. The concept of green infrastructure is focusing on healthy ecosystems inside and outside networks of protected areas, as well as artificial features like ecoducts and eco-bridges. This part of the policy is under a fierce development, and the Commission plans to publish a communication, potentially in 2012, in order to deliver major benefits for the biodiversity. The Natura 2000 network starts to be more or less complete. So the designation process starts to be more or less complete, and it is time for the traditional biogeographic seminars to be closed. However, other needs have emerged, and it is time for a new process. In contrast to the old process, this new process will focus on management of Natura 2000 network. Like in the old process, the biogeographical regions will be dealt one by one. First pilot seminar of the new process will take place in Finland in the spring of 2012, and the other seminars will follow at the pace of approximately 2 per year. The seminar will take the results of Article 17 reporting on species and habitats conservation status as starting point. It will look at them at a biogeographical level, and it will aim at supporting the member states in achieving favorable conservation status of species and habitats listed in the Habitats Directive, and to improve status of bird species. The measures that will need to be taken will be identified through discussions between member states, experts, stakeholders, and the Commission. The seminar process aims at identifying and bringing important EU added value for the use of member states. It aims at improving the coherence of the network, strengthening cross-border cooperation, enhancing exchange of information, and agreeing on good practice in management and restoration. The scope of the seminar is not limited to Natura 2000 network, as conservation status of many habitats and species is only partly dependent on measures in Natura 2000 sites. This is a process where the results of Estonian Myers inventory will be highly valuable, and we invite you to bring your knowledge to the use of this process. The process is still in an early phase at the moment, but it is planned that the expert networks would play a significant role. I hope that this presentation gave you an idea of the different issues on EU biodiversity agenda with the most relevance to wilderness. And I will conclude my presentation. Aitäh!